Hi, Anthonise. How are you?
Hello, Patrick. I'm doing wonderfully. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, great. Thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to be a part of this outstanding forum, this wonderful conference. I'd like to wish the audience a good afternoon, good day. I have the wonderful pleasure of welcoming Dr. Anthonise Fields of Bristol Meyers Squibb to the virtual stage. Anthonise is an accomplished researcher who has who received her undergraduate training at the University of Pennsylvania, where she was a Howard Hughes Fellow and a Penn Women's Trustee Scholar. Anthonise later earned her PhD in microbiology and immunology at Temple University's College of Medicine, and she is now the Senior Director, Team Lead for Academic Research Collaborations at U.S. Markets at Bristol Myers Squibb in Princeton, New Jersey. So, everyone, let's welcome Anthonise Fields, Dr. Anthonise Fields, to the virtual stage.
It is my pleasure, and thank you so much, Patrick, Dr. Oates, for the invitation. Anytime I have an opportunity to share my journey, demystify the entire process, I enjoy doing so.
Good, good. Thank you so much. And I've had the wonderful pleasure of knowing Anthonise well over 15 years, I know, because I recall meeting her when she was dating her now husband, and that was before children, right? And
Absolutely.
so, Anthony's your oldest is the same age as my son, I think 14, going on
Yes.
15.
Yes. And
Right.
I actually had to do the math the other day
Yeah.
to confirm that he was 14.
Yeah.
It goes by very fast.
Yeah. Time flies. Time flies. But Anthony has a beautiful family. Her husband, Miles, is a good friend of mine and friend of my wife's from years past. And certainly I've watched and admired her career path for some time. And for me, as a scientist, having earned a PhD myself in physiology and molecular biology in the College of Medicine at Howard, I can certainly relate to the challenges that perhaps you had to overcome. But at the same time, I'm just so in awe of how you've managed to use your PhD not only to earn a wonderful living for your family, but also to benefit those who are less advantaged, disadvantaged, I should say, and those who are disenfranchised. So, over the course of the next several minutes, I'd like to really talk to you, Anthony's, about your career, what drives and motivates you to do what you do, why you're so passionate about women's health and disadvantaged communities and healthcare disparities. And certainly, the audience that we're speaking to this morning or this afternoon represents young men and women that are either driven and interested in STEM or have an interest in pursuing careers in STEM. And
Mhm.
I'm very happy to be a part of this discussion. So let's get started. What motivates you to champion causes as it relates to STEM, healthcare disparities, and women's health, Anthony's?
Yeah. So it starts with my own origins and how I got here.
Hmm.
And I'm a person of faith, and I believe that everything that I have gone through, I collect those experiences, whether they're good or bad. I'm also a scientist, so there's a phrase that there's no failed experiments. So whatever we do, it's to our benefit to understand, learn, and grow from them. And so at the very beginning of my conscious life, I had experience that was quite remarkable. And it revealed a dynamic that we see mirrored over and over and over again. And we see it, and I see it all the time in my life. And that was that I was not born in this country. I was born in Haiti, and I did not speak English. But when I came here at the age of 5, I happened to be in a class, and because I did not speak English, it wasn't clear uh, what what the reasons were. So I was placed into a program that was for children with learning disabilities.
Hmm.
However, there was a teacher that walked in and noticed that I was staring up and looking when all the other children were heads down, still working. And it was at that moment that she realized that we were doing math. And while I could not communicate, and my teacher could not communicate with me, it was very clear to an outsider with a different lens that I indeed had the competency and the potential to excel. And that what was happening was simply a situational um, thing that was based on my recent arrival to the country. So quickly, I was removed from that program and put into a mainstream program for a month, and then into a gifted program. So what that has taught me is that we are stewards of one another.
Hmm.
There are circumstances that we find ourselves in, and we need to be alert and look out for one another, and also try to advocate for each other's greatest potential. And that is what happened for me. And I feel a burden. And also, it's an honor for me to be able to champion others reaching their highest potential, whether it's their educational potential or whether it's their health potential. And so those are my drivers.
Great,
And
great.
there have been several instances like that in my life where I have had people at the intersection of things that could have gone not so right, who said something, did something, and it changed the course of my life to where I am right now.
It's interesting you say that, Anthony's. Just yesterday, I had the wonderful pleasure of participating in a breakfast to honor a former federal judge, A. Leon Higginbotham.
Mhm. Oh,
And the
of course.
keynote speaker at that event was no other than Ken Frazier, the
Mm-hmm.
chairman of Merck Pharmaceutical Company. And one of the many things that I learned from Ken's uh, talk, if you will, was that he was empowered and encouraged and influenced by his father. His mother
Mm-hmm.
died at a young age, and he was saying that his father wasn't a very sentimental man, but he was a custodian for UPS, I believe he said. And this man, though he didn't have a exceptional education, inspired him and was probably the key source of inspiration in his life at that very early age. And I'm sure that you could also, I mean, the success you've seen over the years, you could also probably share a similar example of how coming from Haiti at a young age and not necessarily being able to speak English, but there was something that within you, or there was something that someone that you were surrounded by saw, and they decided, hey, this young lady is special, and we're going to do our very best to encourage her, to inspire her, to realize her full potential. Can you recall who in your life was that motivating factor?
Well, that teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and there have been several. So
Mm-hmm.
just to complete that, so I will say Higginbotham and Ken Frazier are two pretty legendary people in my life. Of course, I was at University of Pennsylvania,
Mm-hmm.
and Evelyn Higginbotham was a major figure there, and so was her husband by proxy. And of course, Ken Frazier, having started my career at Merck, it was he set a standard and was a model of courage in what you do. Not necessarily putting yourself first, but your integrity and what you believe to be what your role is at that time and space. And um, he gave all of pharma the I would say the permission to live according to the ethics that guide us and that we are working on the behest of all patients. And, but to your question, title is not a prerequisite for being a leader or having an impact in someone's life. And
Mm,
so whether it's a teacher, and there have been several teachers who have sewed into me, my mother, who worked in a factory, my dad, who drove a taxi, any number of administrators who looked out for me and said, the executive associates who, would kind of have a listening ear and provide some insights on how I should show up. And or whether it's in my current day lives and people who mentor me in various facets. It's not even just about my scientific achievements, but those who coach me in relationships, being a mother, in organizations that I serve in, and Jack and Jill. But I have a value for various voices, and I truly believe that I learn from everyone. And either I'm learning what to do or I'm learning what not to do, because I'm reflecting on how whatever it was that happened landed on me and how I want to impact people. So a specific example of someone who has impacted me was, even though we're talking about, it's not, you don't need a degree, but I've had mentors who were at University of Pennsylvania.
hmm
There was Harold Haskins. And Harold Haskins was a fixture for us students at University of Pennsylvania, because for many of us, that was our first time entering an environment where we were not in a predominantly Black situation. And and then there were constant challenges on our intellect and whether we belonged. And so he created a scenario and an environment where he validated our presence, he validated our voice, and he prioritized us above everyone else. And through those experiences, when I did not, to be quite transparent, didn't have the self-confidence that perhaps I do now, I
hmm
was able to borrow someone else's self-confidence. And what I mean is that, okay, I don't know that I can do this, but if this major person thinks that I can, then perhaps I can. And then that is where I show up. And as a result of that, I will take on challenges. I will lean in. I will allow myself to be vulnerable, and I will work hard. And I'm also very appreciative. And I think
hmm
all of those
hmm
elements, going back to the question that you asked, Patrick, I think those things really made it easier for people to continue to help and support. Now, I've had several challenges because I think that, there were, in the environment that I'm working in pharma, um, there are people who are working for their own self-interest, but there were always people along the way that I can say, hey, that person said something that truly helped me, or even challenged me and therefore forced me or compelled me to grow.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Can you tell us about your role with Bristol Myers Squibb, your current role, and how you're using the company's many resources to champion your interest specifically around women's health?
Absolutely. So, my role as a senior director and team lead is very different than what people see me present to them on a day to day. They see me a lot in the health equity space,
hmm
but that's not my day job. My day job is to forge collaborations, establish research opportunities with expert academic institutions such as the Harvard system, MD Anderson, Mayo Clinic, um, that would help to accelerate us reaching our research objectives. Because one of the things the premise of that is that no one person knows it all. No one institution has that knowledge. Science is quickly evolving. And so what you learn today very quickly will be obsolete or won't be complete. And so we partner with the key opinion leaders globally. My team specifically, I'm responsible for the US market, but to integrate our knowledge, forge develop research that would help address patient gaps. So when we release products to market, we don't know everything about that drug. And even as we are looking at various disease states, we don't know everything about that disease state. But if there is a mind in the US at a particular institution, we will find that mind and forge collaborations that would help us to get to our answers quicker so we can get medicines to patients more quickly. So I and my team, there are 26 institutions that we prioritize, and we are responsible for knowing the science and the oncology space, the cardiovascular, immunology, as well as the hematology space, understanding who the key players are, what the key research and where the science is shifting so that we can bring information back and help shape the strategy. And also the proper use and appropriate use and fiscally sound use of BMS's investments. Now, what that allows me to do is have access to the top minds within the US and even globally.
Hmm.
So, and a lot of these institutions, particularly the cancer institutions, they have a special designation by the National Cancer Institute.
Hmm.
And there is a responsibility for them getting major federal dollars for their research. And that responsibility is that they reduce the cancer burden in their communities. And a lot of these NCI designated cancer centers are in urban communities. And
Hmm.
so therefore, when there is not when no one truly understands how to reduce cancer burden within like the African American community, for example, this is an opportunity for us to bring our minds together, identify evidence-based solutions, multi-level evidence-based solutions that could help address a challenge, a problem that is we understand is multifactorial.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that is what allows me to use my day job to then help drive change and awareness to some of the challenges that exist in a population that is still underserved, and to point a light, shine a light to a population that these top institutions are not addressing. And as we're making these lofty strategies to say, yes, we'll do all of this, and here's my perspective on this, but how's that going to impact this underrepresented population? And women, Black women, we sit at that intersection of being minorities on, both dimensions,
Hmm. Hmm.
gender as well as race. And so there are some unique challenges that we face as well. So it's continuing to say and ask those questions when you're in the room. Let's get the science done, but is it going to be reflective of all patients, and especially the most underserved?
Absolutely outstanding. Thank you. What a fascinating position to have in industry, and an amazing way to use your talents and skills to impact change. So, thank you for sharing that with us. In our final few minutes, Anthonise, I'd like you to perhaps provide advice to young men and women listening who aspire to pursue a career in STEM, perhaps even in the pharma industry, but are constantly faced with obstacles and challenges. What advice would you give them? And I'm sure, like me, you probably never could even conceive that you'd be in the position that you're in today, because, quite frankly, we didn't have role models in the pharmaceutical industry. The only people of color that were in the pharmaceutical industry years ago were sales reps,
Right, right.
and there's still very few in R&D in big pharma.
Absolutely.
So, what words of encouragement or advice would you give young people that are interested in pursuing careers in pharma?
I would say you're absolutely right, Patrick. And it was a different day when I started, and I am, thankful for where I have ended up. It's been a lot of hard work, but when I think about what has contributed to where I am right now, it's listening, learning, being resilient,
Mm,
and asking. And so when I think about listening, it's pick up everything. When people are, as people are talking, jot notes, and even like as you were talking right now, I was jotting notes. Um, but always have a learning posture
mm,
and know that it doesn't stop. Know what you learned in college or post college, that information will serve as a strong foundation, but it will be incumbent upon you to learn new things and to bring those new things to the table. And also, when you're there, feel empowered to ask questions. I've found, and I think you have found as well, that sometimes when we ask questions, and it may not be stop a meeting and ask questions, but when we have asked the questions, everyone in the room had the same knowledge deficiencies or the knowledge gaps. And so I live in the space of knowledge gaps. I have very smart people who are Nobel laureates who talk about their knowledge gaps on a daily basis. So
mm.
confront your knowledge gaps and always go after meeting them and filling those knowledge gaps. Ask those questions, be curious, and but also be comfortable in what your individual contribution is.
Mm,
I truly believe that everyone at the table has value and your voice has value. And that is why diversity in action as well as inclusion is so important because there are, you're seeing the problem differently. Your solution is going to be different. And ultimately, if you are an end user, or even if you're not, you would understand the limitations of whatever it is that people are trying to propose. So learn and have that be the basis of understanding where your knowledge gaps are, address those knowledge gaps, and contribute. And understand that no one knows everything, but understand that wherever you are, your job is to contribute, and you should prepare for that and meet that moment.
absolutely outstanding. Anthonise, what a pleasure it's been to talk to you, though a very brief period of time. I guess we could talk for hours, and perhaps in the future we'll have an opportunity to engage one another and to offer pearls of wisdom to those that aspire to walk in our path. Um, Perhaps we'll have a time to chat longer. But as we close, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I want to thank Bristol Myers Squibb for hiring you and giving you the opportunity to make an impact on so many people. I understand that you're hosting a um, a project coming up called Reclaim Her Health
Yes.
in partnership with BMS and Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church here in
Yes.
Philadelphia. So I wish you the best and hope to see you and your lovely family soon.
And in the same, Patrick, I mean, you have been an inspiration. You are a bridge builder and you are a giant in our community. So anytime I get an opportunity to talk with you and interact, um, there are many pearls that are dropping on me. So I thank you, and I thank your beautiful family, Evelyn, who is another strong, notable person in our community, and your two beautiful children. So thank you for the opportunity to share what it is that I have to share today.
Great, great. See you soon.
All right, see you soon. Bye bye.